I know it should go without saying, but you'd be surprised.
He called me an asshole.
Yeah.
Remember that? Yeah. I was like, me? No.
Tamara got him kicked out.
Yep.
He did. I'm serious.
Yeah, he wasn't.
It was a hostile work environment.
Yeah.
So, you guys all did an amazing job. The cool thing is, so usually we do these, and it's on Saturdays, and it's both classes, and we need like more than the entire Saturday class. Like, you guys would be staying probably 45 minutes later on a Saturday to get through everybody, and without having to be rude. So, as you can see, there's only 4 groups that we have to go tonight, so we're gonna probably get out really early, and then you guys can get some well-deserved rest, and then you can come back on Saturday, and I'm gonna kill you with some Node. So we'll start doing back end. It's gonna be really awesome. Don't be that afraid of Node. Node is literally just JavaScript running on the server side. So don't think of it as anything else but that. Some guy with a lot of time on his hands decided to take the Chrome V8 engine and make it available for all of us to use, and that's what Node is. Like you using developer tools, that's what Node is. That's literally what Node is. Somebody made developer tools for an enterprise level. That's all it is. So every time you open up console, nope. That's all. So don't think of it as this mystical beast. All right. So we're still waiting for an Albert.
I said we're waiting on you.
Yeah, seriously. I hope he comes in like dripping sweat.
Yeah, you want to come in his little Godiva chocolate bag with like his little chicken, whatever he eats.
Oh, don't mind me.
Looks like I'm like just drop his bag, fumble around for it.
So we're going to be recording these, and we record them so we can upload them, and we give them to career services so they can watch them back. They can see how good you guys are at like selling stuff, and that way, when they start helping you go through the interview process, they can say, during project 1, you did a really good job at this. You could have used a little bit of work at explaining this part, and so on and so forth. It's not for us to sit there and judge you and laugh at you. Maybe kind of.
I won't laugh.
We don't do that to people.
I don't do that.
No.
Only for me.
Yeah, only Miguel.
I send LOL to your Slack, to like the Slack of the person.
Yeah.
LOL.
Yeah.
Right before they start.
Yeah.
Or make some montage at the end of the class.
So, I don't know. He said I talked to him today. I thought he was going to be here.
Oh, sweet bag, dude.
Yeah.
Did you bring chicken and something else? Did you bring chicken? We're eating.
Yeah, I think like for graduation we should all get out.
I was totally gonna say it.
Whatever.
Well, I got the bag, right?
All right.
He didn't drop it though.
No, you didn't.
So without further ado, we have a couple of guys who made a pretty cool application, and Mike, Vincent, and Miguel.
Nice.
They offered to go first, so give them double clap. You stepped on the gable. Yeah.
Good start, bro.
Do you want to make it full screen?
Yeah.
Alright guys, so we made an app called Beer Up, and a little background story. So me, like a bunch of my friends are really into craft beers, going to breweries and stuff, and they brought me along, and I didn't really know much about beer. I like drinking beer. I liked having like a Miller Lite or something, or a simple beer. But they were into like fancier beers, and I didn't know what I was doing when I would go to the brewery. Like if you ever go to a brewery and have a flight, and you get a couple different beers, it's hard when you first go to know what to get. So we decided to come up with an idea called Beer Up, and what it does, it's like an informative beer app that tells you all about different kinds of beers, and it takes you, if you go and hover over each of these beer types, it gives you a little description about each beer and the different aspects of the different types of beers. And
Okay. Your laptop's freezing.
Is it?
Alright, I think if we just leave it on there, it'll eventually do the hover effect.
Hold on. What's up? There we go. There you go. Take two.
Save you hovering over it.
Well,
so if you hover over each beer type, you get a little insight into what each beer is like. And if you don't know anything about beers, it can help you make a decision when you go to the brewery and you want to try out a new beer or a cool new beer that's come out. And we used Untapped, which is a popular beer app with, I think, 7 million unique users. And what that app is a beer rating system. So if you go and have a beer somewhere at a local brewery, you go and rate that beer. So we got into their back end and we took their data and we made a little tool that links up with all these beer types and shows you the top rated beers and the most popular beers of each beer type. And while Untapped is more for the connoisseur, it's more for someone that's really into craft beers and going to breweries and trying new types of beers. Our take is more for the beginner. It's more for someone who's just trying to get into craft beer drinking and all that good stuff. So we made this idea come to life. Mike and Gail are front end whizzes. They put the front end together. We worked with Untapped's back end API. We worked with Google Maps API to get the data we needed, and it all came together pretty nicely. So, Miguel, you want to
Yeah,
explain
sure.
the first page?
So yeah, I mostly just worked on the first page. We really wanted to do this thing where we just had like cards, right, that had the different types. And I kind of wanted it to look cool, so I used background image, right? And I used the cover for the background size so that it would do the whole card. And then I kind of like put like a absolute like header at the bottom, right, and put a background color like same as the border, right? But the cool part was like the hover effects, like CSS. The pseudo classes are just really fun to use, right? So I think all I had to do really was turn the background image off on hover and set a background color, right? And then you could do like display none on the paragraph and then display it, set the display to like block or inline block, and then set it back when you unhover. Well, if you just set the hover effect in CSS to display, then it'll go back to the default one later. And yeah, so we just like wrapped these cards in like A tags so that when we click on it, it'll go to the next page. One of the tricks was making it to where on the next page it knew what beer type to display, right? So we used session storage to hold the beer type, and then on load it used that beer type, right? So you want to just go on to that next page?
Yeah, I'll just explain the back end a bit. So what happens is when you click on one of these links, each card has a data attribute. So you pass in the data attribute you store it inside the session storage. And when you click on it, it should bring you to the next page and your results pop up. So what we did was we did a query with Ajax to the Untapped API, and we grabbed around 50 queries, I believe, and we stored it inside an object. So we used that object later on to, we grabbed the top 10 and listed it on the page. And what we did was we used jQuery to create the elements dynamically and plug it in the page. So what happens when you hover over it, it does some small animations. It gives you the details, description of the beer, its name, and also the alcohol by volume. Which, if you hover, it gives you an explanation of what it is, and also the international bitterness units, which is how bitter it is. It's out of 100. So we use Untapped API for that, and the second API we used was Google Maps. So what you can do is click on the beer name that you want to, I guess, find, and it would show you the original brewery it was from. And yeah, you could it would just give you a marker with the location on Google Maps. So you could go back if you wanted to go to some other one, maybe Goose IPA. Show you where the location is. One thing we did run into, since we had limited amounts of calls for the API, I wanted to kind of store the key somewhere safe so that no one can grab it, since it is public, since it's on GitHub. So what I did was I created a backend. Let's see. So created a backend with Node and Express, and then what it does basically is it saves my data that I want of the APIs, and I'm able to call it at a point that I created in Heroku. So I hosted this, in the end, I hosted this backend on Heroku, and that allows me to call it with an endpoint. Yeah, so we used that to grab the API keys when we did our run scripts.
So we ran into, like Mike mentioned, we ran into the problem with the API calls. We can only do 100 calls per hour. So we really had to be efficient with calling the endpoints we were using. And
like 6 times.
yeah, the first time we tested it, we ran out of calls in like what, 2 minutes. We could have tested it more for another hour. But one thing we want to make an improvement on is Untapped also has an endpoint that gives you ratings of the beer. So the results you see here are the top 10 most popular beers in terms of how many times they were rated. So I think the #1 beer on IPAs is like 50,000 reviews, but it doesn't take into account what they were rated. In Untapped, they have another endpoint that gives you rating based on a 1 to 5 scale. So an improvement we can make in the future is make an efficient way to compile the data for the rating, and also display that to the user to give people the option to see what people thought about each beer in terms of rating. So, and another thing we wanted to